This is the 14.5-inch infotainment system that you're going to find inside of some Genesis vehicles. This specific one is in the GV70, so it's going to look the same whether you're in the GV70 electric or the regular gas versions, with a few small differences, specifically looking at the EV side of things, because obviously if you were in just the regular gas engine, you wouldn't have that option. But this is going to be a walkthrough, and I'm going to show you everything that you need to know about this screen. And the first thing that you're going to notice is that as I navigate through the screen here, I'm not actually touching the screen. And that's because down the center stack, there's a giant button that you can use as an option in order to get around the screen. Now, you don't have to use the button. You can still do all of your swipes and things like that across. But I personally am finding that the button down the center stack actually works really, really nicely once you get the hang of it. Because using that button, you can go up or down, and then you can just rotate the dial in order to go across different screens. So you can go up, across, down as necessary in order to get to all of the available screens, all of the different subscreens and things like that. So the process is going to work the same, so whether you're touching the screen or whether you're using this little button there. So let's kind of dive through. This is going to be the home screen. Actually, that's going to be the home screen that you'll typically see when the vehicle is first turned on. You've obviously got your date and time, if you had audio that was playing, and then your rough geographic location, which is kind of cool. So it's a very roughed in map. Shooting off to the side, we've now got our home screen. So you've got the option of changing between different user profiles. And one of the big benefits of having the user profile is that you can link a number of different things to the actual driver. So you'd be able to link up your presets if you had them for AM, FM, SiriusXM, your phone that was connected. If you have your driver's seat set up, so your profiles for your driver's seat, for your steering wheel, side view mirrors, things like that, you'd be able to link all of that to your individual profile, which I just think that's brilliant. You can also password protect it. So if you didn't want people to be able to see your presets, phones that are connected, things like that, and you can even have it based off of fingerprint. So you could set it up for fingerprint protection on top of that, which again, really, really neat that that's available. You can change the user out very simply this way. And you've got a few different drivers that are available, different languages that are available there as well. So we're just going to stick with driver one. That's just because that's what I'm set up to right now. But like I said, you could link everything to that profile. Up along the top there, you've got your home button in order to get back to that home screen. And then you can also shoot into this menu, and you can use that in order to turn the display off, or turning the display back on again. You could then also reorder the icons. So this one here is kind of neat because let's say if you didn't want your EV mode first, you could drag and drop across in order to set this up the way that you'd ideally like to, which is pretty neat. And then back home again. So that locks up your final destination, or your final, I should say, layout in place. So let's start off on the EV side of things. So obviously, like I said, if you didn't have the EV version of the vehicle, you wouldn't have this screen, but you can see your total battery percentage, how far you are from the current available charging station. And then there's also the total range that you've got till empty. And that's also because as of right now, I don't have climate or anything going. So if you turn on climate, if you have different things running, like the radio's turned on and things like that, you'll get a more accurate range of the total range that you're looking at inside the vehicle. So I want you to think of the range there as if everything's off and you're just running the vehicle just kind of by itself, versus if you have your climate turned on and things like that, that's going to negatively impact your range. Then you've also got the EV charge transfer, and the other one is going to be scheduling climate and charging. So hopping into that other menu, max charge percentage. You're typically going to want to go 80 to 90% is typically the best. Actually, I think it's DC supercharging. You should really only go to 80% maximum. And then your AC charger, you can go to 100 if you're going to be using the charge right away. Otherwise, I'd probably say your best bet is to keep it at around 80% though as well. Down to your charging current, do you want to use 100, 90, or 60%? If you're having problems with your vehicle charging up, it's generally a good idea to drop down to 90% instead. And that's just got to do with the current for the charging station that you're using. So if you're finding that you're not charging properly, drop yourself down to 90% instead. There's battery conditioning mode specifically for wintertime driving. Utility mode's available there as well. So if you wanted to use the vehicle while camping, which is great, so you're essentially using the vehicle as a giant battery instead. And back. There are different options for your regenerative braking. So regenerative braking is a neat one because there are a few different options. And like specifically when you're looking at the steering wheel, so you've got your minus on the right-hand side and your plus on the left-hand side. And that's going to change up the overall level. So you can jump between a few different levels there. So there's 3 different levels, and then you can get into your iPedal driving, so your one-pedal driving. You can lock the charging cable, so beneficial if you're in public charging. And then even if you're at home, if you're not in a garage, but I would say that one, always lock the charging cable on the outside so when you're plugged in, so people can't just fiddle with it and unplug the charger. And then charging, well, that's the basics of the charging there. Okay, next up, let's look at the next departure. So you can see there, these things are not currently set. So you'd be able to set what time you're going to depart at. And what we're doing is we're selecting the time that we can have the vehicle set up for essentially preconditioning the cabin. So let's say if you leave at 6:30 in the morning, Monday to Friday, you can have that set up so that it's turned on. And then when you're plugged in, it's essentially going to precondition the cabin for you. And then you could jump up. Oh, let's jump down and across in order to edit. So you can edit it out as well if you want to, very simply that way, shooting across as necessary. And then you can have multiple options set up as well. So if you're going to be plugged into to a charger at work, you can also set it up to adjust based off of that time there too, which is kind of neat. And back out. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Scheduled charging. So because we've got a next departure turned on, you can now schedule your charging and your climate there as well. So if we look at scheduled options, there we go. So same idea. So if you wanted to be able to charge yourself up during certain times, you'd have that flexibility. So let's say if you get cheap electricity rates from 9 o'clock at night and it ends at 6 o'clock in the morning, you can do that. You can have it prioritized for off-peak charging or only charge during off-peak hours instead. Again, if you wanted to save yourself a little bit of cash when you're charging up at home. Obviously, if you're using a public charger, that's not going to matter. And then it's the same idea for scheduling your climate there too. So climate, what climate settings do you want? So if you are preconditioning your cabin, how high or low do you want it to be? It's kind of neat. Actually, that's a useful one, especially winter time. So if you wanted to set it so that the vehicle is going to be turned on, and then it can also blow to the windshield to make sure that when you get inside your vehicle, it's nice and toasty warm for you and ready to go. It's really neat. And move them back home. So that's the basics of the electric settings. And moving into map. So you do have factory navigation inside of this thing, and factory nav is standard, and it is very responsive. Now, when you do any sort of a pinch to zoom like what we're looking at here, or I should say drag and drop, you're essentially looking at the end destination. So this is where you want to go if you're doing a drag there. If you want to get rid of this, just push the back button, and that's going to bring this back up again. But let's go through and look at some different options. So you can actually, it's actually kind of neat. You can zoom in and out using that little rotary dial too, which is kind of cool. Hopping back home brings you back to that home screen instead. And then along the very bottom, so you've got a series of options available. So you've got menu, destination. You can look for previous destinations, saved, home or work addresses. Benefit of setting up your home and work address is that you can say navigate home, navigate to work, and it'll navigate based off of the addresses that you've saved there. You can search for an address. You can search by GPS coordinates if you wanted to. So it's a latitude first, a longitude second. You can search by point of interest icon. So let's say if you're looking for a Tim, this is actually kind of neat. I love this little dial. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you do, it is so cool. There we go. And we've got a series of different Tim Hortons that are available. Let's take one further away. You can set it as a destination. You can save it, look at nearby information. If your phone was connected, you'd be able to call as well. And then you can jump it into a split screen. So I want to say, set it as a destination. And then from there is going to be, so additional setup required. Let's deactivate this just because this is a demo vehicle. But you can see there, you've got a few different routes that are available. So you can select one route versus the other if you want to. And then you can add in a waypoint. So let's say if you wanted to stop somewhere partway first, like let's say if, I don't know, maybe in between there, you wanted to add in an option for an EV charging station because you wanted to see what was around as you go. So you could jump to an EV charging station there and then okay. So that's how you're adding multiple addresses in. So if you're going for a longer destination or a longer trip, I should say, you can add in each destination and then it's going to take your overall charge into account as you go as well. And then calculate. It's going to show you the different route options that are now available. So you've got two different options there. end, you're going to select through.
The route guidance will start now.
In order to go. So, I mean, it's straightforward, and then you can use the dial again in order to zoom in and out, or you can just do a pinch to zoom on the screen there instead. But one other neat thing is that if you've got a head-up display inside the vehicle, it's also going to give you the option of showing your turn-by-turn directions right inside of the head-up display too, which super neat setting there. Love it. But if you want to walk through like on the head-up display, the steering wheel cluster, things like that, you'll find it down in the description of this video. Along the very bottom, now you've got some other options. So you can change your headings along the top there if you want. You can turn... There we go. You can adjust or turn off all of the different navigation volumes there instead if you'd like to. So if you're not a fan, or you can just cancel the route out. So the route is now canceled. But factory nav is really straightforward using in this thing. But you've got, like I said, your menu, searching for addresses. You've got all of the previous destinations that you've looked at there. If you wanted to jump back into one of the other addresses that you've been to, you could go that route, hop back out instead. There's a menu option there on top of that, so you could turn the screen off if you'd like to. Back home into Maps. This is really neat. Look at this. North 2D, Neon 3D. Oh, that's neat. All right. North up, generally a good option there. And then just hopping back to the home screen. But that's the basics of using factory navigation. There are some different options for your navigation menu too. So again, searching for addresses, nearby point of interest icons, previous destinations, and things like that. There are some additional settings that we'll get to once we get into the settings screen in a moment. Next up is going to be radio. And radio, I mean, so you've got your radio there, but you've also got AM, FM, SiriusXM. If you had a USB stick with MP3s on it, that would be available in your media there. So you've got AM, FM, SiriusXM, Bluetooth, USB, Sounds of Nature, Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. There are so many different things that you can listen to from a media perspective inside the vehicle. Sounds of Nature is kind of a neat one. So hold on, listen to this. So that's just so nice and calming. And then your scroll wheel, or your wheel for your volume, you can get at it down the center stack there if you want to, but there's also an option on the steering wheel. So you can scroll either way in order to be able to adjust your volume. But yeah, like these calming sounds, if you're the type of person where when you're driving, you tend to get a little bit blood boiling, or if you just want something relaxing, you do have that available, which is kind of neat. And let's do a little touch there. And actually, let's go back to radio for a second because there are a few other things. Jump back into your menu. You've got your radio off. You can enter in a station manually that way if you want to. So let's say if you're a fan of listening to... Scroll wheel's interesting. It doesn't work the best way for some situations, but you can change songs that way. But there's also a voice command prompt on the steering wheel. Push that. 97.7 FM.
Now listening
there we
to
go.
97.7.
So you can also adjust what station you're listening to using your voice instead, which again, I love doing it that way. And that's the same for AM, FM, SiriusXM. But once you're actually tuned to the station, you can use that giant button in order to be able to rotate through all available stations. So it's essentially going to be your seek button now instead, which is kind of cool. Up overhead, you've then got SiriusXM. Woo! Oh. Wrong button. All right, so SiriusXM is also available. All right, there we go. So SiriusXM, you could save it out. So that little star icon along the very bottom, if you're a fan of the station that you're listening to, you can enter the channel on the very bottom there instead. So if you know your SiriusXM channels, that's kind of neat. Oh, a little trackpad. That's kind of cool. Neat. Oh, wait, hold on. I want to know... Okay, I wasn't sure if that was going to work out. I was like, that'd be kind of cool if that ended up actually working, but it did not. And then you've also got your channel list along the very bottom. So you can see all of the available stations that are available. But that's not just for SiriusXM either. So you can see there, like I'm saving these things out. But if we go back for a second, and let's jump into FM, and you've got so all of your different stations that are there, everything that you've saved in. So these essentially are going to be your presets along the very bottom side there. If you hop back into menu for a second, there we go. We want to go station list. And that's going to be the same for AM, FM, SiriusXM. So if you're new to an area, these are all of the available stations that are in the area. If you wanted to be able to save one of these things, so all you're going to do, scroll, 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 and you see how there's a little star icon beside these things. So these are the stations that are essentially unsaved right now. So you've got all of your saved stations. You could push this way if you wanted to save any of them as a preset. So you've got your little star icon there. That's how you know they're now an available preset instead. If we go another nice local station and back, and then scrolling through, you've got the other stations that we've added in along the very bottom there. So that's how you save presets in. You're going to go to your menu along the top. You're going to jump into your station list. And then once you're in the list, you could then adjust out this way if you want to. And then you're just going to press or depress the star in order to either add, or you could remove the presets into the vehicle. Like I said, options there. You've got your voice command prompt and things like that. So lots of different ways to be able to adjust, but that's using the radio inside of the vehicle. I don't think, scanning, deleting presets are available, radio noise, and then reorder presets. So if you want your presets a certain way, you can add in so many different options, but if you wanted to listen to, let's say, your other stations there, you just kind of do a drag and drop. You can use the little scroll wheel there as well. So you push the scroll wheel in, and then you can move it wherever you want to instead. So let's say if you wanted to adjust this one up, you can do it that way. Pretty neat. That's good. I love it. But that's the basics of using the media inside of the vehicle. Next up, well, I guess this is going to be actual media there instead. You've got the option for FM, AM, SiriusXM, Sounds of Nature. Those are your basics. There's Bluetooth audio, Android Auto, Apple CarPlay for streaming, and then there's USB music and USB video. So if you've got a USB stick with MP3s on it and video, all you're going to do, plug yourself in down the center stack there. And before I played the video, I was so frustrated. So I went through and I use MP4 typically when I'm exporting the videos that I upload to YouTube. But MP4s wouldn't play on this, and it's technically on the supported list. Like, there are very few types of video files that'll actually play back. AVI is supposed to be a supported format. Tried that, didn't work. WMV, not going to play back. I was able to get mpeg 2 to actually work. So for video, that is available. But I'll have all of the different formats popping up on screen here. But you've got USB video. Watch this.
You figure out if it makes sense to look at the Ford Edge or the more luxurious Lincoln Nautilus. Let's go for it. Starting off underneath the hood of these crossovers, they both have the same engines. You'll find either a 2-liter turbo or a 2.6.
So I love the fact that you've got video playback available inside of this thing. I'm actually curious now. So the car is currently in park. So if I go to drive, it does happen. Okay. I kind of figured that that was going to be the case. So you can't actually watch video while you're driving. So if you're parked, you're waiting for things to maybe charge up, or you're just kicking back for a bit, you can actually watch video right through the screen here. But the downside for the video is that it's strictly over USB. So what you'd have to do is take your video files and convert it to very small number of formats in order to actually be able to play it. But USB video playback is available here. HD radio data, whether or not you want traffic and weather to be showing up, yay or nay. And then hopping back into phone. So as of right now,
device. Search for the vehicle name shown and pair.
You can see there that no phones are currently connected to the vehicle, and actually setting a phone up is very straightforward. So I'm going to start off on the iPhone side of things. So what you're going to do is go into Bluetooth, and you're looking for electrified GV70. You can change that. I'll show you how in a minute. But pin numbers match up, so we're going to pair. Allow contacts and favorites to sync. This is a press vehicle, so I'm going to say no to that one.
Download was unsuccessful.
And it said unsuccessful because I said no on my phone. And it's going to say all of these things are unavailable now as well, just because I've selected no. But you could go to your address book, dial pad, and things like that. But I mean, straightforward along the very bottom, you've got your phone name, and then your current connection status, and your current battery level there as well. So I'm now connected over my phone. So if we were to actually go back home for a second, and let's look at, actually, even better, let's just go media. And then media, you can see there, media is available on the phone. So you've got all songs that are available on your phone. Hopping into media sources gives you a few other options. So you can listen to Bluetooth audio this way now instead. So you've got a ton of different options that are available for media sources, things like that. You can change devices if there are other Bluetooth devices that were connected to the vehicle. Now, one other thing This vehicle does have support for Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, but it's a wired connection. So you just have to make sure that you've got a USB cable on you, you're plugging yourself in, and should just take a second there. So yeah, reading USB, and we should see, there we go. Now it's asking me on the phone, do I want to allow CarPlay while the vehicle is locked? Yes, you want to do that, because when your phone's locked otherwise, it just wouldn't work. So I said yes there, and if we have, look at that giant map, that's amazing. But hopping back home, you've got the phone there, and it should launch me right into CarPlay. Amazing. That's good. And it's got a nice little split screen, which is cool. So you do have the flexibility of kind of going up and down this way instead if you want to, or swiping up and down in order to show a few different things. So if you wanted to have your battery status while you're running CarPlay, or if you wanted to use factory navigation, but then you also wanted to use audio inside of CarPlay, you can kind of do a mix and match between all of these things, which is kind of neat. So you can run AM, FM, SiriusXM while you're also running your maps. But on the CarPlay side of things, along the outside, you've got your current time and connection status, which map was open last, which audio application was open last, which miscellaneous application was last opened, and then you've also got this little home icon screen there instead. So you go to your little home button there, and that's going to bring you to this basic screen. And you've got all of your available icons. And I mean, as you can see there are a ton of different options that are available inside the vehicle. But if you push this button, it brings you up to this little screen. So it's your map. You can search if you've got audio going, and then you've also got your current miscellaneous app. So tons of options. From a map perspective, you've got Apple CarPlay, or sorry, I should say Apple Maps, there's Google Maps, and then there's Waze. And all of these things work great, but there's no pinch to zoom capability on the Apple side of things. So you have to go there and zoom in and out this way instead, if you want to. You can search for addresses, you can search with your voice instead. Waze users will know that, so you can let people know if there's if there's any accidents, traffic crashes, hazards on the road, and things like that. That's honestly one of the reasons why I love to use Waze. But Google Maps is the same idea. So there's no pinch to zoom capabilities. You can do this in order to zoom in and out this way. You can search for addresses. You can hit this button in order to go between different route options. So avoid highways, toll roads, and ferries. A few other things that you can adjust. And Google Maps, or Apple Maps, I should say, is the same idea. Search for addresses, previous destinations, change your headings, zoom in and out, all that fun stuff. And then you've got a ton of different options for your apps there as well. So you've got your podcasts that are available for music. Live One is a radio app. Hoopla is a library app. There are so many different options that are available inside this thing for audio. You've got YouTube Music and a few other things, but through CarPlay, it doesn't support video playback. So you have to have a USB stick in order to be able to use it. And that's just back on the home screen of the vehicle instead. So back under our media, if we hop in there, you can see there's your USB video. So you have to be connected through USB in order to play video there. So it's just strictly a USB device. And back home. But that's using CarPlay in a nutshell, with the exception of one thing. And that's that you've got the flexibility of going to Settings, General, and CarPlay. You've got the electrified G70 or whatever the name of your car is. You can forget it. You can allow CarPlay while the phone's locked, yay or nay, and then customize. So let's say if you're not necessarily a fan of certain things, like let's say if you don't like podcasts being there and you maybe want, it actually helps if I remove. Let's say if you love your audiobooks along the very top and you're a big fan of using Google Maps instead. So you can do a hot button press there in order to be able to adjust this thing and customize it to make it your own. If you've played around with it too much though, and you're not a fan of what you've done, along the phone in the top there, you can see a reset button, and you're just going to reset the layout, and that brings you back to the factory default screen there instead. But that's the basics of using Apple CarPlay and how to set it up inside the vehicle. Setting up an Android device is the exact same process. So as of right now, I've got a phone connected. So down the center, I'm just going to go to the setup option, and then you've got device connections. So device connections, you can see that I've got the iPhone currently set up there. But if you scroll down, there are a few other options that are available. So you can enable or disable CarPlay if you wanted to, Android Auto. But what you're going to do is along the very bottom there, you've got the add button. So you're just going to go in and add.
Device. Search for the vehicle name shown and pair.
Perfect. And from there, we're looking for electrified GV70, connecting, pair, pins match up, so yes. And just like that, fully connected to the Galaxy now as well. And then you can see there's this little hamburger button. So if you push and hold that, you can then do a drag and drop. So if you've got multiple phones connected to the vehicle, it's who gets connection priority. So as of right now, we want that to be the Samsung. So if you were to go back home for a second, you can see now, so the iPhone is currently connected, but you could do a phone swap. So again, if you've got multiple phones connected, it's going to connect through. And it's asking me now, do I want to download my contacts? I'm going to say no to that one, again, because this is not my vehicle. And I'm fully connected. So if I wanted to, I could make phone calls. I've got the phone name, connection status, and then battery status there as well. So very straightforward. And, oh, there we go. It's also asking me, do I want to allow access to my messages? Same idea. Press vehicle, definitely saying no to that one. But I'm now fully connected there. Now, very similar to the iPhone side of things, Android Auto, so Android devices are USB. So you do have to make sure that it's a USB data cable. But once you know that it is, you're going to plug yourself in. And Android Auto, so we're going to connect next there. And it should take a few seconds. And look at that. Fully connected, which is great. All right, and we're fully connected now to Android Auto. So you've got this little multi-split screen now. So this screen along the side is always going to be there, but you've got this split screen within Android Auto. If you wanted to go full screen, I'll show you how in a second. But first thing I'm going to point out, you've got your current connection levels, battery levels, and the time, your map, audio, phone, and then you've also got your assistant. So you could do a long press and hold if you wanted to activate your Google Assistant, your Siri Assistant, whatever the case may be. You can push this button in order to get to this little icon view, or back to the little split view instead. If you wanted full screen maps, just push the map icon, and that goes full screen for you instead. Pinch to zoom capabilities on this side of things, which again, amazing functionality. You can search for addresses if you want to. You've got all of the different options that are available for Google Maps, so avoiding motorways, toll roads, ferries, things like that. You've got your different heading icons that you can change around. You can zoom in or out this way if you want to, or just recenter you back to the default there instead. Pushing this button gets you back to this screen. Pushing the icon view gets you back to this option. And one thing to point out, this phone does have Waze installed, but as you can see there, Waze is not currently showing up. So if you've got Waze installed on your phone and it's not showing up properly, I have put together a little walkthrough video explaining how to actually add Waze into Android Auto. So you'd be able to find that walkthrough down in the description of this video. But that's the basics of setting up Android Auto inside the vehicle. The only other thing to point out is going to be the option to customize. So on your phone, you're going to search for Android Auto. You're going to go into Android Auto settings, and you've got a ton of different options that are available. But the one that we're looking for is customizing the launcher. So you've got your phone, maps, Genesis, things like that. So you can just do a press and hold. In order to adjust this out, you can add in other things if you want to. And same idea, press and hold in order to reorganize. But unlike the iPhone side of things, Android is essentially going to be not automatic process. So I'd love it if it was kind of dynamic like it was on the iPhone side, but it's not. So the easiest thing to do, once you've customized your launcher the way that you want, unplug, plug yourself back in, and we're going to give it a second there so Android Auto is connected. Okay, just have to wait for that to go away and back home. I'm going to swipe across into Android Auto and connect. And let's make sure, there we go. So the changes that we've made have now taken effect inside the vehicle. So on the Android side of things, like I said, you have to disconnect in order for those changes to come into effect. But that's how you set up Android and iPhone devices inside the vehicle. Only other thing to point out, back on the home screen, you've got your phone that's connected there, back to your basic phone there. But if we go into, that's what I'm looking for, device connections. So you've got both phones that are available there now. Unavailable while using Android Auto. So what we're going to do, disconnect from Android Auto, and let's connect through. So you can see there are a few icons that are available. So you can have essentially like a little mix and match. So if you wanted to have one phone connected for phone calls, one phone connected for audio, you can do that. And then like I said, you can just do a press and hold. Once it's loose, you can go up and down this way. So it's who's getting connection priority if you've got phones connected. And then deleting the phones is straightforward. So along the bottom, you're just going to hit delete, mark all, delete, and yes. And it's taking a second to delete, and both phones are now disconnected from the vehicle. And the only other things to point out is going to be Bluetooth system info. So if you wanted to change your vehicle name, that's where you're going to make it happen. So inside of your device connections, once you get to, actually I'll show you how to do that. Go to your setup, device connections, you've got your Bluetooth system info to change your vehicle name. Phone projection settings if you want to disable Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, things like that. But that's how you go about setting up a phone, both Android and iPhone, inside of the vehicle. There's Genesis connected services, so there are certain things that are available through Genesis, but you do need a plan in order to be able to use them. And then there's also an app on your phone, and you'd be able to do things like remote start the vehicle from your phone. You'd be able to unlock the doors and things like that. But you do need to have the app installed. Unfortunately, because this is a press vehicle, I can't show you the process, but what I will do is link off to a video talking you through how it's done. You can find that down in the description of this video. There are voice memos that are available here as well, so you can record directly to the vehicle if you want to. There's setup information now, so a ton of different options that are available. We'll dive into that one in just a sec. I want to finish these ones up. Next up is seat. So you've got passenger seat controls, and then there are also basic seat controls there too. So you've got your passenger seat controls for your position, so you could slide the seat forwards, backwards, and things like that, which is kind of cool. Seat recline, cushion, things like that. Seat settings that are available. So you've got your seat warmer balance for the back versus the cushion. So do you want it more cushion focused, back focused, or in between them both? And that's the same for the driver passenger side. And then you've also got your smart support, which is kind of neat because that means that it's automatically going to adjust the seat based off of how fast or slow you're going. So faster is going to tighten things up. Slower, it's going to loosen things up for you instead. Ergo seat is a massage chair seat inside the vehicle. So some vehicles do have this available as an option, other ones don't. It is really neat, but you've got a few different options that are available as you go through. So you've got strong versus normal, and then there are a few different modes that are available too. So by turning it on, you've got pelvis, waist, whole body, or you can turn the whole thing off if you want to. Then there's also something called smart posture. And what that's going to do is that's going to also help out as you're driving. So what it's going to do is essentially look at your body position, and then it's going to potentially adjust the seat for you automatically based off of your driving habits, which is pretty neat. You can enter your information, so your basic height information. And then this is a useful one. So your height, your seat easy access. So what this means is when you go to turn the vehicle off, it's going to lower the seat and back it up in order for you to get in and out of the vehicle a little bit easier. There are 3 different distance levels available, or you can toggle it off. Do you want that happening for the front passenger seat as well? And then same thing with the steering wheel. So when you turn the vehicle off with this turned on, it's going to push the steering wheel in order for you to be able to get in and out a little bit easier. Okay, next up, some options for light. So there is ambient lighting available inside the vehicle. You can adjust the brightness this way if you want to. So brighter, darker, whatever the case may be. You can adjust the color. Do you want to have it white, brown, sapphire, etc.? So the colors there are great. And then there's also the option for a full color wheel for a fully customized color. You like a very unique shade, maybe you like some teal, darker blue, whatever the case may be. You can adjust your own custom color if you wanted to. And back out, that is the basics for the color. And then do you want it to dim under certain conditions as well? So specifically the ambient lighting dimming. Turn signals, listen to this. So as a default, it can go for 3 flashes. It's typically where you're gonna have set up. But when you use the turn stock, do you want it to go 7 flashes, 5, 3, or just a single flash instead? I tend to find 3 is good for me. Options for your lights. So do you want to have your welcome mirror light, so Genesis projected onto the vehicle floor when you approach or when you go to unlock the door? It looks really, really cool later on at night. Headlight delay. When you go to lock the vehicle doors, do the lights stay on for you for a few seconds? So this one approximately 15 seconds. High beam assist. If you're in the auto light mode, the vehicle's going to automatically turn the high beams on for you. If it recognizes somebody's oncoming, it's going to dim them for you instead and then turn them back on. And then do you want your interior lights on all the time? Yay or nay? Liftgate. There are a few different options that are available there. So do you want to have the vehicle lock automatically when you go to shift, or when you go speed, so as you start driving. Auto unlock, same idea. So do you want the vehicle doors to automatically unlock when you shift to park, when you turn the vehicle off? Or do you just never want it to automatically unlock for you? Do you want to have 2 button press unlock in order to open up the doors? And then this is the other, okay, so this one. So the GV70 doesn't lift, it isn't a big vehicle, but if your garage won't let you go past a certain height there, you can set it to unique custom heights. So it won't go past a certain height for you instead. So if you don't want it to go full way, part way, whatever the case may be, or you can select your own unique height. Or you can just go full open, so it's going to fully open that liftgate door for you instead. Smart liftgate is a great one. And then there's also remote window control. So smart liftgate means that you can walk up to the back end of the vehicle with the fob on you, it'll open up. And then there's also a really cool remote key fob trick. So let's hop outside and I'll show you how those work. Once the vehicle's locked, so you have to, let's say you're going grocery shopping, and then you've got a handful of groceries, kids, whatever the case may be, or you just don't want to pull the key fob out of your bag, your pants, whatever the case may be. Once you're locked, you have to get at least 10 to 15 feet away for about 10 to 15 seconds. And then all you're going to do, walk up towards the back end of the vehicle and just hang out there for a second and watch this. Up the liftgate goes. So smart liftgate, absolutely love it. You can push the lock button when you see that starting to come on in order for it to stop. And then you just button press in order to close again. There's one other cool feature that this thing has, and that's the flexibility of rolling the windows down using the fob. So all you're going to do is push and hold the unlock button. And it's as simple as that. So just push and hold, watch this. Down they go. You can release in order to pause it part way. And then to continue the cycle, you just push and hold the unlock button again. And down they all go. And that's all 4 windows, so driver, passenger side. So really, really cool settings. I wish that it was window back up as well, but it's strictly window down. But still, that's pretty good at the same time. Rear occupant alert. When you go to turn the vehicle off, it's going to tell you to check the back seats to make sure you haven't forgotten a little one. Wireless system. So do you want the wireless charge pad to work? Yay or nay? Rear wiper when in reverse. So if you've got your windshield wipers going, you shift yourself into reverse. It's going to automatically put the rear windshield wipers going as well if you had that turned on. So if your windshield wipers were going, you flip into reverse, rear wipers coming on as well. And that's the basics of your vehicle settings there. I know there's basics, there's a lot of information, but still, it's pretty neat. Information first. So quiet mode. So what that's going to do is that's going to have the audio playing strictly through the front speakers. Maxes out at 25% as well, just in case you've got little ones sleeping in the back. Climate settings. So there are settings down the center stack of the vehicle, but you've got a series of different options that are available right through the screen here as well. And I mean, there are so many different options that are available. So you'd be able to adjust the driver's side climate, passenger side climate, whatever the case may be. Turn it off. Do you want it going to windshield face feet? Whatever the case may be. And you can have it set different for the driver in comparison to the passenger, or you can sync the passenger to whatever the driver's side is. The climate controls through the screen here are great, but I also love the ones down the center stack there as well. So you can have it going to an auto mode. You can adjust your heated ventilated seats by going this way down the center stack. You can adjust your climate this way too. Turn on your heated steering wheel, air conditioning, do you want your heat going, and things like that. It's really cool that I love it. It's like a big kind of, it's got haptic feedback, which is pretty cool down the middle. And then turning the climate off, that's essentially big buttons. So big buttons on the outside, and then haptic feedback along the screen down the center stack there instead. But I love it. And then you've got different options. So there are rear controls as well for climate. You can toggle those things off, and then all your basics like dehumidify, defog, defrost, and things like that. Nice. And then next up is going to be terrain mode. And terrain mode is currently turned off. So in order to turn it on, you have to push the little terrain button down the center stack, and that's going to give you options for drive modes or terrain modes. And you can see there a few different options. So there is the snow mode, mud mode, and then sand mode as well. But it's good. And then each mode is going to do something different, like play with traction control, stability control, things like that. Or if you're in the drive modes, it's going to give you a sportier performance. You've got custom modes and things like that. So there are a lot of great options that are available inside of my mode there. So the terrain mode. And moving back, notifications, and then there's also a digital owner's manual. So if you wanted to, you could take your phone, scan the QR code in order to open up the digital owner's manual. It takes a second there. So you can see there video manuals, navigation options, Genesis Play, and things like that. So it talks you through a lot of other things that you might know. So if this video doesn't help, the option to scan through the QR code is going to help out with everything else that you might need. But there are so many different options available for the manual, I should say. And then setup is the other one that we've got to look at. And setup, there are a lot of options here as well. So let's hop through. And first one is going to be driver assistance settings. So as you move through any of these options, so driver assistance essentially is all of the options available, but you can dive into any of these options independently if you wanted to. So you could hop into your parking safety if you want, or back out into your basic driver assistance settings. So you will notice a few of these things popping up as you move through. So if you look at driver convenience, there are different options available. So the big one here is actually a lane change assist. So when you're on the highway, you use your turn stalk to go left or right, and the vehicle is going to check along the side to make sure that it's safe. It takes probably about 7 or 8 blinks of the blinker going if nobody's there before it fully moves you over. But it is a really, really cool feature. Do you want the vehicle to automatically change speeds if it recognizes it? So based off of your GPS locations. And then Smart Cruise Control is available here as well. And the Smart Cruise is an awesome system, but if you want an actual walkthrough on using the Smart Cruise Control in person, you'll find it down in the description of this video. And let's move out. Speed limit. Do you want to get a speed limit warning? I will say inside of electric vehicles, you might want to use the adaptive cruise system a bit more because it is very easy to go fast inside of these things. But there's speed limit assist, so the vehicle can automatically slow you down as well. Different warning timings, warning methods, so volumes. So if you're going to get an alert, it's what's the intensity of the alert. A haptic warning. Did you hear that one? So it's a little steering wheel vibration. So if there are any sort of warnings, so if you go to change a lane, if there's something going on, it's going to essentially give you a haptic warning in the steering wheel. It is a very odd feeling. It feels like there's something wrong with the alignment. There's not, but it is available there. I'm just going to go for level 1 because like even level 1, it is very noticeable. And then your lane safety warning. So if you go to change lanes, somebody's beside you. Do you want to get a message letting you know if that's potentially going to happen? Let's go to forward safety now. Actually, did we? Oh, we didn't even get through this. I went back too far. All right, and then there's driver attention warning with a few different options there. So lead vehicle departure alert's a neat one because if you come down to a complete stop, let's say you're in stop and go traffic or at a light, and then it goes green or traffic starts moving, you're not paying attention, it's going to tell you that the lead vehicle has taken off, so you can then start driving. Inattentive driver warning, if you start to veer over too many times or you get too many messages, eventually it's going to tell you that you should probably take a break. Forward safety assistance, so if the vehicle senses that there's somebody in front of you, you're potentially going to get into a collision, it can do a few things. So it can actively brake for you if you want it to. It can give you a warning or nothing happens. The active assist is definitely a useful one. And then forward cross traffic safety, so as you're coming up to an intersection, if somebody's coming perpendicular, it's going to let you know of a potential collision there. Lane safety assist, same idea. Do you want to get an assist, warning, or nothing happen? Blind spot view monitor is a neat one. So if your vehicle supports it, when you hit your left turn stalk to go either left or right inside of the cluster screen, it's going to show you what's going on inside of your blind spot. It is a very, very useful setting. So you've got your blind spot view monitor. Active assist is available there as well. Nothing exciting. Safe exit assist. So if you're going to open up your door and you're about to dummy a bike rider, then it's going to let you know of somebody that's in your blind spot that you may not have necessarily seen. And then there's also parking safety assist. So there's an available surround view monitor. The surround view monitor inside of this thing is really, really cool. Hold on, let me turn this thing on for you. So you've got your full 360 camera there. There's a basic backup camera. There's a split view as well, so you can see what's going on beside you. I would say the big one there, getting in and out of tight spaces, really useful there for sure. And then you've got a top-down view, and then it's really cool view instead. So it even works as you're going to drive. So you go into reverse. Let's get this cool view. So you can see there, as you're moving. I mean, I love that. The blind view monitor, the surround view monitor inside of Genesis vehicles is, I'm going to say it's stunning. I love the way that they've done it. All right, next up, moving into drive modes. You've got a few different options that are available for the drive mode. So you've got, do you want to be in a sport mode, eco, or comfort? Obviously, if you're in your sport mode, you're going to be using a lot more electricity in comparison. And it's the same thing with the steering and then the suspension. So sport steering essentially is going to tighten things up quite a little bit, versus if you're in your comfort steering instead, you're going to have to throw the wheel a bit more to turn. So sport, nice and tight. Comfort, a little bit loose. And then it's the same idea with the suspension. Do you want it to be tight? It's really, really good feel when you're in that option. Same idea for your brakes. Do you want to be in comfort or sport brakes? And then you've got active sound design. So if you wanted a little bit of an engine sound effect instead, you've got different options available there. It's very subtle, but it's available, which is kind of neat. So if you wanted more of that like internal combustion engine sound instead. And then there's options for the head-up display. So do you want the head-up display available? Yay or nay? But with the head-up display, I mean, in my opinion, I think that it's a really useful system at the same time. So you've got your head-up display. You can control the height if you want to. You can adjust the brightness there, the rotation and things like that. And then even the content that's showing up. So do you want your turn-by-turn directions in there, driving convenience, blind spot system, and things like that? So if you had a route going, it would show you right inside of your head-up display there too, which I think it's brilliant. Really useful. And then information about the cluster screen as well. So as of right now, so cluster, you can adjust the illumination. So if you want to have it auto brightness, so it's automatically going to adjust based off of how bright it is outside. Then you can also select different options. So do you want it to link to the drive mode? So as you adjust your drive modes down the center stack, do you want it to automatically adjust out the look of the cluster screen? So it's locked into place there to theme C. But if you just link it to your drive mode instead, as you go up and down between different modes, it's going to lock it out. I personally really like the look of the sport mode, which I believe is theme B. So I would probably lock it out that way, but that one's going to be a matter of personal preference. There's depth that's available as well. And depth is honestly really hard to capture on camera, but you've got maximum versus no depth, and it just creates this beautiful, stunning depth inside of the cluster screen. You can then reset your energy as well, content selection. So what do you want showing up inside of the screen there? But yeah, basics. But like I said, if you wanted a full walkthrough of the cluster screen, the steering wheel buttons, you'll find it down in the description of this video. Moving out to climate information. Again, nothing overly exciting. Seats, which we've already seen the seat options there as well. Options for lights, which we've already seen. So again, you see a lot of these things kind of duplicated as you go. Door and liftgate, which we've seen the shift to park, smart liftgate, and then your series of different convenience settings, rear occupant alert, auto wiper, and reverse. So again, all of these things are kind of duplicated in different sections of the screen. There are some different options for navigation settings. So do you want it to show your vehicle speed, point of interest icons? Let's see, overly exciting here. There we go. Do you want to avoid certain things on the route? So do you want to avoid ferries, toll roads, HOV lanes, and things like that? Border crossing information. If you're getting close to crossing a border, it can let you know. Alerts, nothing exciting there. And then map. So map mode, you've got different map views that are available. Do you want to show your building in 3D? And then auto scale. So the auto scale is neat because as you start to get closer to a potential turn, it's going to zoom in for you, and then it can kind of zoom in and out as necessary. Different options for your font sizes. So you can see there, it's kind of going different size there. So if you do need the extra size, it is available. Do you want to change out the color of the map? So you can see it kind of adjusting there. I personally am a bigger fan of either the mocha or the black, but that one's going to be a matter of personal preference. And then your little Star Trek-y symbol, what color do you want there? And And that's the basics of your map. You've got some navigation features there as well. So previous destinations, do you want to save them? Yay or nay? So if you're lending your vehicle out, you can make sure that your previous destinations are never saved. Do you want to automatically return to the map after a certain amount of time? And then the other one is GPS info. So you specifically have your latitude and longitude there. So if you're going somewhere, you get lost, you need to tell a tow truck where you are, you've got your actual GPS coordinates available there as well. Some basics for EV, which we've already seen all of this information. So you've got your charging currents, battery conditioning mode, utility mode, and things like that. Sound settings are available as well. So your speed-dependent volume is a useful one. So if you go faster or slower, it's automatically going to adjust the volume for you instead. Start up max. So let's say if your audio is cranked, when you go to turn the vehicle off and turn it back on again, it's going to limit it so it's not too crazy of a sound when you hop in. And then positioning. Do you want it focused on the driver, passenger, people in the back, or just centered out in the middle there instead? Then you've also got the option of adjusting treble, mid-range, and bass. That is definitely off. I just picked this thing up. So what I'd recommend, recenter it. You want to drop, in my opinion, like treble up a point or two is good. Mid-range centered out and bass cranked by like 3 or 4 points tends to be pretty good for my ears. It's going to be different for everybody though. So play around with that a bit until you find that perfect sound for you. Different options for your guidance volume. So you can adjust all of these individual volumes for alerts, guidance, navigation, sound effects, and things like that. So I love the way that these things are fully customizable. Guidance volumes, etc. Nothing overly exciting there. And yeah, so you've got the like I said, flexibility of adjusting all of the individual sounds. So if you wanted different sounds to be at different levels, you can adjust all of these things out. And then device connections, which we've already seen. So all of our basic device connections, Bluetooth system information for changing the vehicle name, user profiles, voice recognition. That one's an interesting one. So when you push the voice command prompt on the steering wheel, it's how many,
Sorry.
That's okay. All right, so whether or not you get a number of prompts. So 97.7 FM.
Now listening to FM 97.7.
So it's told us what it's doing. Versus if you say reduce the number of prompts, 94.9 FM. It just does it instead. It doesn't tell you that it's doing it. So that one's a useful one if you don't want to get too many notifications. Screen options, there are a lot of options that are available there as well. What theme do you want to look at? So there's either your basic copper versus rust theme, and there are very subtle differences between the two of them. Exterior color, so that's kind of a neat one. So inside of the cluster screen, as you change this one out, it actually updates the color of the little car inside of the cluster. It's kind of neat. So if you wanted to customize it a tiny little bit to kind of make it your own, you've got the flexibility to do that. And then there's also your font size inside of the vehicle itself. So do you want to have, so your radio size there, which is kind of neat. Map font size, wallpapers. You can't customize the overall wallpaper, but there are different options that are available there. So you can't create your own unique one. Cluster theme selection, which we've already seen. Do you want it permanently locked out to one of the other options, or do you want it linked to your overall drive mode there instead? Useful. Screensaver, do you want one, yay or nay? So when the screen is off, so we're going to go this one and turn the display off, there's nothing there. But when you go into, let's say, analog clock, different watch face, and let's go and turn the display off, you've got a little watch face there instead. I personally love the look of these things, but that one's going to be a matter of preference, or if you prefer the digital clock, that's available for you there as well. And that's the basics of the screen layout. Options for display, which illumination, so you can adjust the brightness of the infotainment system. For the camera, so the rear camera, what information do you want showing up? So actually I'm going to go into reverse because it's way easier to see that this way. So I already pointed out the rear view camera, but if you hit the little button there, so you've got a few options. So your rear parking guidelines, when we get out of there, the guidelines are these things that show up. I personally recommend those. And then it's the same thing when you're in the top-down view. It's what information do you want actually showing up there? So the guidelines, whether or not those ones show up. I'm personally a bigger fan of having most of these things showing up just for basic safety. Blue light filter. Later on at night, it can automatically adjust to make the screen brighter or darker. So it's essentially warmer, so it gets rid of all of the blues. You'll see here that these things are grayed out, and that's because you're in the automatic mode. So if you go into the user set time instead, you can select when you want the blue light filter to come on. But I honestly just recommend let the vehicle determine it, and it'll automatically turn on the blue light filter, or you can just never have it come on instead. If you had video going, you could also adjust the video color there. Button touchpad, so you've got 3 unique buttons. So there are 2 different buttons that are available on the steering wheel. So there's a mode button, and then there's also a little star button. But when you push those buttons, what do? So you hit the little star button down the center stack there, so the first one that's available. Do you want it to go to your EV mode? Do you want it to go to your home options? So there are tons of different settings that are available. And then there are 2 different ones on the steering wheel. So what mode option do you want to be in? So in your mode button on the steering wheel, or let's actually use the star button first. When you push that, do you want it to go to hands-free calling, maps, rerouting, cancel, EV, nothing happening? Actually, radio on off is a useful one. And then your mode button along the steering wheel, what do you want that one to do? So you push that button there. Do you want it to switch between all of your available sources? So do you want it to be able to change between your Bluetooth, phone projection settings, USB video, and a few other things? So it's kind of neat because every time you then go to press that mode button, it's automatically going to adjust out based off of whatever information that you have there. Connected services does need an active connection through Genesis to work. And then you've got a series of general settings. So you've got what current software version that you're on, system information, storage, so how much is currently left, 128 megs. So we're looking at like early 90s storage levels there. And then your basic modem information. From there is date and time. So do you want to set the time automatically? Definitely recommend that. It's based off of your GPS location. And again, date and time is grayed out because you're in the auto mode. But then you can manually set this if you want to. Again, I normally don't recommend that. You can also have it adjust for daylight savings time. And then do you want that military time instead, or do you prefer the 12-hour mode? So 12 versus 24-hour mode instead. And back out, there are language options available. So for language, you've got English, French, Spanish, or Korean. Keyboard options, you've got either QWERTY or ABCD. Different options for different keyboards, and then your touchpad recognition. So the touchpad down the center stack there, so this works as a little trackpad. So if you tend to have your hand sitting there, you can have it automatically adjust based off of whatever finger position you're typically going to use inside of this thing. So units is another useful one. So I'm in Canada, so I'm kilometers, but you can go either kilometers or miles. And one great thing is as you switch between all of these options, it's automatically going to adjust it right inside of the center stack there as well. Do you want your temperature to be in Celsius or Fahrenheit? Do you want to be in kilometers? And then when you're in miles, it's the same idea. So you jump through tire pressure and things like that. Which measurement unit do you want to be in? And then from there, you've got media options. Do you want to have the radio off when you start the vehicle up? I personally like the radio on. Do you want to continue playing the media while the vehicle's turned off? Useful, because if you turn off, then the radio is just going to keep on playing for a certain amount of time. I believe it's usually up to 30 minutes before it turns off. And then reset options. So if you're going to sell your vehicle, this is a press vehicle, so after I'm done with it, I'm going to delete driver data. You can reset all to bring everything back to the factory default instead. So it's going to remove all of your phones. It's going to remove your presets, remove your maps, everything. It's going to reset you back to your factory defaults. But that's the basics. There are so many things that are available inside of this screen. I just love that you've got the flexibility of using the little scroll wheel in order to adjust between all of these things. I know that's quite a lot of information, but that's everything that you need to know about the infotainment system inside of Genesis vehicles.